But in terms of the church, saving the church on earth, Christ has already done that, okay? We are cooperating with Christ in doing our part, which is not to badmouth and demand the Pope's resignation. Rather, we should pray, reverencing him the whole time when he's wrong. And he has been wrong, Pope Francis, and he's admitted it. Jesus said, the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. So why are we trying to act as if the church depended upon the church's salvation or success depended upon us? It does not depend upon you. Let me get this through your head in a very gentle way. The church does not depend upon you to save it. Christ has already saved the church.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, bless it.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God. Well, I'm going to cut right to the chase this time, because when this video of Father Altman was going around on social media, I was immediately reminded of what Father Vincent Lampert said in one of his lectures before. But first, let me share with you the video of Father Altman that I was talking about earlier.
Because Jorge Bergoglio is not Catholic. He is a fraud, he is an imposter, he is a viper from hell. So memo to Bergoglio and every American cardinal, save Cardinal Burke. When you die, and it won't be long, and you meet Jesus Christ the Lord, beside him will be standing Saint Tarcisius, Saint Charles Luongo, and St. Robert Bellarmine, and they will block the entrance to heaven and watch you fall to your eternal damnation into the unquenchable fires of hell. That's how Jesus described it. To which I only can say, out of love and concern for you, dear family, the eternal souls they are leading astray, this cannot happen soon enough.
And it's also important to remember that Father James Altman was under a diocesan decree not to present himself publicly as a priest, such as wearing clerics in public or on YouTube videos. Anyway, here's the video of Father Vincent Lampert addressing the disunity within the church.
So I get in these arguments with sedevacantists primarily, who, for reference, they believe we haven't had a valid pope since 1958, and they say things like holy orders haven't been valid since Vatican II, and even that the sacraments in the New Rite are not valid. And I'll actually use the efficacy of exorcism, even in the New Rite, like what you do in your ministry, as evidence that the church today in the New Rite has this authority from God still as a Catholic Church. And I'll reference in Scripture even when they accused Jesus of casting out demons in the name of Satan, and he said that's illogical, essentially. And
because a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Right,
and divided against himself.
And so I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, how the efficacy of exorcism, even in the New Rite particularly, is validation that the Catholic Church has that authority. And I guess related to that, what can you say about these various Protestant ministers or even people from other religions who claim that they are casting out demons, obviously not according to
Well, I would say, first of all, that the Catholic Church does not have a monopoly on the practice of exorcism. But because it is a liturgical rite, then we have a prescribed way that it should be done. But the Church does recognize the presence of Christ in other faith traditions, other Christian traditions. And again, it's important for people to realize that in an exorcism, Jesus is not a bystander, he's the main actor. So there is, I would say that a lot of the arguments, I think that's where we find Satan, because Satan is always about division. He wants to pit us against one another. That way, we're more focused on the division. There's a great line I saw in a book I was reading the other day, and it said, in regards to all the division within Christianity, we may not be united in faith, but we should be united in love. We may not be united in faith, but we should be united in love. Whenever I think about all the disagreements amongst all the Christians, I think we argue about what's on the periphery, not what's in the core. That's even true of Catholics that reject the Second Vatican Council and say that the last valid pope was Pope Pius XII. Again, we're arguing about things on the periphery, we should be focused on the person of Jesus Christ. It reminds me of different members in the family. You know, parents may have, who here has brothers and sisters? I have 8 brothers and sisters. But again, we all didn't have the same relationship with our parents growing up. It doesn't mean that one relationship was better than the other. It was just different. So when I think about the division within Christianity, I like to think that perhaps we're all children of the same family, but maybe the way that we have our relationship with God is just a bit different. Doesn't mean better, it's just different. So I like to look at it in those terms. And again, I think when it comes to arguing and bickering, I think the devil loves that type of conversation. Because again, Jesus came to create community. The devil wants disunity. So in an exorcism, demons will try to speak, and they'll want to enter into dialogue and conversation. And why do they do that? Because they want to detract from the church. You know, I had a priest tell me he was doing an exorcism, and then when the demon spoke, the demon was like, you didn't prepare yourself properly today, you know, you didn't really genuflect in front of the Blessed Sacrament, you didn't kiss your stole before you put it on. Again, trying to, what do they say, the devil is in the details. So again, when I trained in Rome, the priest that trained me taught me very clearly, do not focus on anything that the demon is doing or saying. Stay focused on God and what God is doing in this particular prayer of the church. He even told me that if you're doing an exorcism and for even a split moment think, wow, look at what I'm doing, he said you've just walked on unholy ground, because ultimately it is what God is doing. And certainly as Catholics we believe that God does work in other faith traditions, even when it comes to the casting out of evil spirits.
Well, anyway, that is all for the video this time. I'm sorry for the relatively short video this time, but I just feel since Father Altman seems to have lots of supporters, I hope those who do will reflect on what Father Lampert said during the lecture. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and for being here with us. Until the next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and God be with you.
But in terms of the church, saving the church on earth, Christ has already done that, okay? We are cooperating with Christ in doing our part, which is not to badmouth and demand the Pope's resignation. Rather, we should pray, reverencing him the whole time when he's wrong. And he has been wrong, Pope Francis, and he's admitted it. Not on doctrinal issues, but on practical civil issues, like with the case of Medjugorje, right? When the Pope said, Our Lady is not like a postman constantly giving messages every day and leaving. Then later on, he says, oh, the first apparitions appear to be authentic. So he went backwards. So he had the humility to acknowledge that. Okay? Jesus said, the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. So why are we trying to act as if the church depended upon the church's salvation or success depended upon us? It does not depend upon you. Let me get this through your head in a very gentle way. The church does not depend upon you to save it. Christ has already saved the church. Does that mean you have now a ticket to be lazy and do nothing? No, that's not what I'm saying. Let's make a distinction here between you coming to the salvation of the church and you assisting Christ's work of salvation, which has already been accomplished in eternity. It's now playing itself out in real time, but it's already been done in God's mind. The church is already victorious. In real time, we have to go through these events prophesied in the book of Revelation. So this is our part, but don't think you're saving the church. It's already guaranteed. What you're doing is you're helping in perfecting that which Christ in his own human nature has already perfected, which is the church. We are now filling up in our own flesh that which Christ has already filled up in his. And this is why Paul says, I'm filling up in my flesh what is lacking, the sufferings that are lacking to the passion of Christ for the sake of his body, the church.